While celebrating former Ohio State players hearing their name called in the 2024 NFL Draft, I was also confused because I expected more former Buckeyes to hear their names called.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes. Here on Monday, April 29th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. One thing I love about the NFL Draft is the celebration that goes on from start to finish as numerous players, over 250, hear their name called in a given year as they officially begin their careers as professional football players. The same goes for Ohio State Buckeyes. We all knew Route Man Marv was a hot ticket, a hot commodity. And he was the fourth player taken in the 2024 NFL Draft. Other Buckeyes that were drafted, Michael Hall Jr., Cade Stover, and Tommy Eichenberg. And therein lies where the confusion starts in. I'm celebrating Ike. I'm celebrating Cade and Hall Jr. and Marv. I'm celebrating them. But I'm also confused why this is a year where the Buckeyes have more players that weren't drafted than players that were drafted. I'm also confused because there are, for the first time in 11 years, this is the fewest amount of Buckeyes that have been drafted in the National Football League. That's very confusing. And I may want to say, Jay, there's a connection between this and that. Not really. 11 years, 2013, what happened? Ohio State had a probationary period. Ohio State had an interim coach in Luke Fickell. You had Urban Meyer. That was in year 2 of Urban Meyer leading the Buckeyes. And so there's a lot of things. Well, it was after the 2012 season, Urban Meyer's first year. There's a lot of things going on that year and that time period that really got you thinking and saying, okay, it's not like Ohio State doesn't have talent. It's just they were hit with something that did not allow them to compile the talent that they would normally have. Tressel gone, you lose a coach like that, a legend. Of course, guys may leave, all that kind of stuff. This year is different, though. Ryan Day's been at Ohio State as he had football coach since 2019. There have been no probationary periods. There haven't been a massive loss of scholarships when Ohio State reports the minor infractions to the NC2A. There has not been a period where the Buckeyes have had anything that hindered them from developing the players or hindered them from getting certain players that was imposed by the NCAA. Maybe via the NIL, the Buckeyes didn't want to go all in on certain things, so they waited while schools from the South were doing the things that they were not going to wait for the compliance department to give them the okay for. They were just going to go ahead and do that thing and make that thing happen. Okay, cool. I'm not mad that Ike didn't get drafted, or I got drafted, or Stover got drafted, or Hall got drafted, or Marvin got drafted. I'm not even mad that Proctor was signed in the undrafted free agent market, as well as Matthew Jones and Steel Chambers and David Johnson. I'm not mad about those things. Great for them. 8 of the 9 Buckeyes that could have gotten drafted were either drafted or got picked up via the undrafted free agent market. That's huge. But this is Ohio State. Only having 4 guys get drafted is odd. Now, here's the truth. Some more context for you. Ohio State this year would have had more than 4 guys get drafted if numerous Buckeyes that stayed at Ohio State decided to leave the school to go to the National Football League. I'll just name off a few of them, rattle them off pretty quickly. Emeka Egbuka would have gotten drafted. Travion Henderson would have gotten drafted. J.J. Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams, Jack Sawyer would have gotten drafted. I wouldn't have been shocked if Ty Hamilton got drafted. I would not have at all. He's a good player, a guy in the upcoming year who's going to really raise his draft stock by the way he's going to play in the fall. Who else is out there? Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom. There's a lot of guys that stayed at Ohio State that if they left, there would have been more. But also, here's more context for you. You would expect a guy like Josh Proctor, for as long as he's been at Ohio State, even though he's battled some injuries, but put a lot of good film out there. And I think at some point his best piece of film in a single season was this year, you would think, oh, that's great. But sometimes if I'm an NFL guy and I know you got some injury issues, I want more than 1 year of good film. And if there is more than 1 year, I don't want 2 or 3 years spread in between those good years of film. Mine Williams, not only his running style may hurt him, which I don't think his running style is a total thing, he's banged up. And this past year, when I don't know if he was ever fully healthy or fully in shape, I do think those things factor into him getting drafted right now. Xavier Johnson, I think he was not going to get drafted no matter what. Still Chambers, Matthew Jones, 2 guys. Still Chambers, 2021, may have been one of the better linebackers for Ohio State in that weird season where the defense really wasn't that good. And all of a sudden, this year, didn't really take the steps and the leaps that you would think you would take. This is weird. This is very, very weird. There's an Ohio State program that has a lot of talent right now, had a lot of talent a year ago, but the talent they had may have just been the good for the college game, not the good for the NFL game. Now, a lot of this is TBD, to be determined. Mine Williams may be picked up by an NFL team between the time of this being recorded and the time of you hearing the show or watching the show. So those things can be happen, but also I get it. I completely understand it. This is why I do think it's very wise that we have Ryan Roberts, my favorite NFL draft analyst, and then also Max Chadwick of PFF coming on the show, sharing their expertise, discussing the notes they have put together and compiled and saying, hey, look, here's why guys are viewed this way. Here's what I am hearing. Here's how the X's and O's are breaking down for this guy. Here's us crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the players. This is why you bring in multiple voices, because you know what? A lot of times, multiple voices, when they are in sync with what they're saying, it helps us have a better picture and more clarity on the things these players are doing. And so when it comes to these guys, how do we get more guys drafted? If you have 9 guys that could possibly get drafted and only 4 of the 9 get drafted, what needs to happen? Ryan Day got to fix some things. Now, Ryan Day is fixing things. I'm not saying he is not. This is not a bash Ryan Day moment on the show. Let's keep that 100. Let's keep that the way that it should be. This is not a bashing Ryan Day moment. What this is, though, is shedding reality on the situation at Ohio State. The development of players has not been the way that it needs to be at Ohio State. It has not. Point blank. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to change it. The development of players has not been the way that it needs to be at Ohio State. Yes, they did dominate the Big Ten the first 2 years of Ryan Day's tenure. What have happened the previous 3 years? 2021, 2022, 2023. What has happened? They have not dominated and ran straight through the Big Ten. No, they have not. And what have you found? Well, the development of players has not been at the same rate or clip that it needs to be. How do you fix it? Bring in the right coaches. How do you fix it? Recruit the right guys. How do you fix it? Put the right guys on the field. I want to talk more about that word and that phrase, that thought on tomorrow's show. It's weird, man. I'm celebrating 8 of the 9. Even celebrating mine for being up and having the opportunity to get drafted. But it's very confusing. The things that we are saying right now about Ryan Day at the college level are being seen and viewed in a similar light by the NFL people, because the players are not being developed the way that they should be. Not only are players not being developed, and is this conversation a little confusing, but there's another conversation regarding the Buckeyes in the NFL draft that confuses me too. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here real quick to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friend to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. And plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Game on. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more. And the best service is Central Ohio. Everything you need for in-home and backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Austin, Canada, billiards, and more. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. They are family-owned and operated, and when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong, no matter the season. Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus, visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on the YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One thing I like to do in any given year, any given draft, is try to figure out who got drafted, who can we celebrate, where the holes, how can things get fixed. That's kind of where the confusion came into over the weekend. Because I was not only confused, only 4 of the 9 draftable Buckeyes, players that entered the name in the draft, actually getting drafted. I'm also confused because for the first time since 2017, there were 0 offensive linemen from Ohio State drafted. And I made a comment when Ryan Roberts was on the show, I think it was a couple weeks before the draft. He came on the show and we transitioned to, or maybe a few weeks ago now, transitioned to Matthew Jones and getting a true breakdown and the true analysis that we want about Matthew Jones as far as his NFL draft stock, him getting drafted, and all of those things. And he even said, hey, he might not get drafted. He just might not be that guy. And I'm sitting here thinking, has Ohio State's play on the offensive line fallen that much that the one guy in the draft that's an offensive lineman, people don't think will get drafted? I think so, at least at that position. Now, another true thing to think about. If Luke Whippler ends up staying in school, he gets drafted on the offensive line. So it's not only the fact that there are guys, Donovan Jackson is still at Ohio State. It's not only the fact that there are guys that stayed at Ohio State, there are guys that left maybe earlier than some thought they would have been. I think Luke Whipple was a 5th-round pick, so it's not like he was just some guy that was, 248, 250, which even if he was great, he got drafted. But no, that's a good pick. That's a good pickup. He is a guy that can play and do some good things in the National Football League. It's weird, man. It's very, very, very weird, the state that people are in. And I forget if it was on Twitter or somewhere else, somebody saying it. It's a very valid point. Perry Eliano was not retained on the Buckeyes coaching staff. He is now gone. I don't know where he's currently coaching at. But I'm thinking, if you got the safeties at Ohio State and you did a good job, Perry Eliano did, of recruiting, yeah, you missed on some, but the one you ended up missing on, the big one, Caleb Downs, ended up transferring to Ohio State after he was gone. So I'm like, okay, cool. He missed on him, but that kid still came to Ohio State. So Perry Eliano did something right as far as, hey, you may lose on the initial commitment, but you won on the second commitment. So I'm a little confused. I am a little puzzled. I am a little trying to figure this out. Justin Fry is still at Ohio State, and I was not one saying Perry Eliano should have been gone. But when you talk about recruiting and you emphasize the recruiting and you want the recruiting to be at a certain rate, certain level, is anybody pleased with the O-line recruiting of late? Now, this is not me saying they don't have talented guys. The Armstrong twins, good, really good. Ian Moore, really, really good. I'm not sitting up here saying they don't have good guys at the recruiting, but all I'm saying is this. Make sure these conversations you're having with these coaches are the same. across the board. Because it's not like Justin Fry has developed these guys to make them so much better under his watch. No. Coach Studrara, and that's the first time I said his name correctly. I would just kind of roll with it. I normally just say Coach Stud because Studrara is a little difficult to say, but when you just roll with it, it happens. But hey, I don't mean to be here pat myself on the back audibly, but I'm really pretty impressed with how well that came out. Okay, back to the story. I'm a little confused though. I'm really, really confused. Because the O-line play has not been a whole lot better under Justin Fry. Better, it's been good. It's been good. Don't get me wrong, it's been good. But it's not taking let's say you're at a 70% level and you want to be at a 85 or 90% level or above as far as your success and your grading, all that stuff. I'm not saying they're there. I am not. Which is very confusing because for the first time since 2017, this is happening. 0 O-linemen drafted at Ohio State. What is Ohio State normally known for? Good play in the trenches, offensively, defensively. And for Michael Hall Jr. to be a second-round pick and for people to have so many question marks about him and, hey, we want more consistency, we want more this, we want more that. What do you have? You have a guy that wrecks the game. And so it makes sense why he is there. Do you have game wreckers or game protectors, whatever word you want to use for an offensive lineman, right now at Ohio State? I'll look out there. Do I want Fryer at tackle? No. Will it probably happen? Yes. Why? Ain't nobody else been developed to play that position like him and as the second best tackle on the team. That's a problem. Especially when you have guys that have been there 2 and 3 and sometimes 4 years and they ain't been developed yet to be the guy. Come on, what are we doing? It's isn't good. Now, this can be fixed. I'm not just going to be up here being very confused and being very frustrated without shedding light on how this bad boy can be fixed. It can be fixed. But what we got to realize is for it to be fixed, you have to do some things that are different so it can be fixed. Tongue twister's done. I'm not going to try to do that again. I'm not going to, but I'm celebrating these guys. I'm confused by these guys. I'm also confused by a moment, something that happened to me, something that was sent to me during the NFL draft regarding Marvin Harrison Jr. No, it's not him being a bad piece for the Cardinals offense. That's not it. But I'll tell you what it is next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. There are numerous ways for you to really enjoy the ticket purchasing process that Gametime provides. They have flash deals to help you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. They have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can see your view from your seat. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And always the lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or even first watch every day. One thing that I love about the draft is the stories. It's being able to see players and hear about players, different side of them that you normally hear. But also there is going to be sometimes there will be different articles that come up that maybe surprise you. And one of my friends, they ended up sending me an article or something they saw on Twitter that was a screenshot of an article from the Columbus Dispatch, and it was written by Craig Meyer. And I'm sitting here thinking, there ain't no way this needs to be written right now. Ain't no way at all. And then even on the Instagram, I saw something where someone was trying to slander some Marvin Harrison Sr. We'll get to that later on. But when it comes to this article, the title of this article, written by Craig Meyer, part of the USA Today network, it was on the Columbus Dispatch. You can even go and Google it and see it there. The title is, Who is Marvin Harrison Jr.'s father? Marvin Harrison was a Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. So the copy editor put this, and I don't know the whole ins and outs of copy editing and who writes the title and the caption, all that. I don't know. One thing I do know is this. You're answering the question in the title, but also, why does this need to be written? Am I really that old that people don't know? There are youngsters out there that don't know who Marvin Harrison Sr. is? Because look, y'all marveling at Marvin Harrison Jr. Y'all would have been marveling at his daddy. His daddy was a dog. His daddy was that dude for the Indianapolis Colts. His daddy did some amazing things. Got drafted, I believe, in the late 90s, I think in the 96 draft. And what did he do? Hey, man. Hey, you got Reggie Wayne on one side. You got Marvin Harrison on the other side. You got Edgar James in the backfield. You got as P Money, as they called him, Peyton Manning. I think Edgar James called him P Money, P Murder, whatever it was. Peyton Manning as a quarterback. What do you Dallas Clark as a tight end? You got an offense that almost nobody in the NFL could stop, and Marvin Harrison Jr.'s dad was a big part of that. But it made me feel so old seeing this, getting this into the one. I feel special people are sending me Ohio State stuff at any point in time, so thank you. I know who it was, know them personally, but still, thank you for sending it. Number two, I just feel so old, man. I feel old. It also makes me feel a little weird because on the Instagram, I saw something about Marvin Harrison Jr. It was a post. I don't know if it was Ohio State, if it was the NFL, the Cardinals. I am not sure. It was just a picture. I know what it was. It was a picture of Marvin Harrison Jr. in a white Arizona Cardinals jersey. Great. Cool. It looks clean. I considered buying his jersey if he went to the Colts. He did not. I even considered, just in my head, probably not going to happen, purchasing his jersey for the Cardinals, but he hasn't signed that deal as far as I know, as far as the NFLPA agreement, so still can't do that. But someone on the Instagram ended up saying about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s dad, why wasn't his dad at the draft? And they were trying to slander and throw shade and throw rocks at Marvin Harrison Jr.'s dad, Marvin Harrison. I ain't gonna say no senior. And Marvin Harrison, and I'm sitting here like, hey, look, one, he was there. Two, if he didn't want to be there to take away, like, it's okay. Like, they have a good relationship, good father-son relationship. Nobody complains about it. Nobody has issues with it. It is good. They do a great. It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. But why would that even be a thing? Why are you thinking about on this day when this man gets drafted, or on this weekend when this man gets drafted, you're trying to throw rocks and slander the man's dad? You don't know him. You don't know where he may have been or where he may not have been. You don't know. You only feel he will let you see. And you know what? Marvin Harrison was at the NFL draft. And I know I went back from watching the ABC broadcast on Thursday to watching the NFL Network broadcast later that evening. And I know that when Marvin Harrison Jr. got drafted, they did an interview in the back with his dad. And you know what? Why he is not in the spotlight? He doesn't want to be. He was never that way with the Colts. It hasn't been that way since he retired. And you can even tell he gets a little stage fright when the microphone's in front of him because they ask him a question, ask him a second question, and try to close the interview, and he's just stuttering over his words. He just wasn't comfortable. It's okay. It's not a big deal. I just feel weird and old and a little confused by the youngsters trying to throw shade, throw rocks at his daddy. Like, that's stupid. But also, number two, I feel very, very weird. Very, very, very weird that this needs to be written about a Hall of Famer, a HOFer. This needs to be written about him. Woo, woo. Makes your boy feel a little bit old. Makes me feel old, man. It's good to be back here. Good to be back here after a fun, exciting, long weekend. Had a trip to Bloomington, Indiana. My brother-in-law got married, and I'm glad. I'm happy for him. I'm happy to be able to enjoy that day with him and the family and all of that. I'm also glad to be back with you here on the show, Monday through Friday. Have you heard the news? Locked launched something big and enjoyable, and it's the first of its kind. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On Plus, our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. You can follow me on X at jstevens07. Send every single email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. It's happening Locked On Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.